This is Calvin Iba from Mad Catter and Lynx, and you're listening to the RoboCast.
Hi everyone, my name is SamElit64 and welcome back to the RoboCast with myself, Steve the AmericanKilljoy, and World of Woodrow. And as you would have heard in the intro, the driver of Mad Catter and of course the now infamous beetleweight Lynx, Calvin Iba. Calvin, welcome back. It's not been that long since we last spoken to you. I think we spoke to you for the Slugfest episode that you guys were in last year. How have you been? I mean, first of all, congratulations on yet another Normal Havoc Golden Brett.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been good. I've been I just came back from Normal Havoc with another win, so that was super cool. And I mean, in addition to that, I really appreciate all the other awards that I won that day too.
I was the best fight one with mixtape.
Yeah, the best fight of the year. And like most fun robot, that was pretty sweet because I mean it's one thing to have the most competitive robot there, to win, and that's like amazing on one front, and then just to have like the most fun is also, I think, a pretty huge feat.
You got both ends of the spectrum, right?
There's lots of competition for that at Walk Heaven, for sure.
Definitely.
And the best driver award was unexpected. Like, I thought for sure.
Is it? I mean,
someone else is gonna win that.
Someone's got to beat.
They just given it to Matt, even though he only showed up to one event.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have to build a new trophy cabinet at this point, because they must be running out of space on the shelf?
It's a good problem to have.
My shelf is overflowing.
We mentioned Matt Vasquez very briefly there. Before we kind of get on to the listener questions and, of course, the episode itself, I do want to talk briefly about your very first fight of the season, facing Matt and
accidental
Whiplash.
segue.
That was really good. Well done. Was so good at this.
That's great.
I mean, obviously,
it's top quality podcasting there.
It really was. Obviously, you two are very good friends. You travelled up together for Havoc last year at some point, didn't you? How was it like fighting Matt at 250 scale?
I mean, like, his heavyweight is way better, and he has way more practice with it than his 3 pounds. So I was pretty scared. And then, my catter's not quite Lynx yet, so I thought we were coming in with a disadvantage, and I thought we were just going to get just manhandled. just Matt's amazing, but unfortunately they had some brushless issues. They're still like trying to get the tune right with their new drive and weapon motors. So I think that really played a factor in this match, unfortunately.
Yeah, they might have had trouble with a Vesker 3
this
season.
I mean, there was one that was forcibly ripped out afterwards as well. Didn't help
that one definitely had issues with. But I'm still like really happy that we got the win. I got some like really solid hits on them. The last hit, against when we pushed them across the rear end of the screws, that like
sensational.
Buckled their whole chassis. Yeah, because we hit like the cross member in the back, and that kind of keeps the whole thing square. So to repair that chassis, they had to like cut out the whole back section and then replace it with a new section of aluminum, because they weren't able to bend it back.
It must have felt pretty like confidence building going into that and having the result you did, because Whiplash are, as you said, they're spectacular. They always tend to be there or thereabouts, and to have a fight like that where you destroy them like in no uncertain terms, it must have been like okay, Mad Catter's here for this year.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't watch the fight back like during the event much. I think maybe only once, but watching it back on TV, I really wish our new front end attachments worked a whole lot better than they did. It seemed like they're really kind of hindering us. And I mean, Whiplash's front was like super, super sharp, so they're getting hung up on a lot of stuff. But ours weren't really getting under them either. So I think for next year, that's something that needs to be improved.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, as I said, we have got a number of listener questions this year for yourself, and this week, sorry, for yourself and, of course, Mad Catter as a team. We'll start off with one from Johnny from Team Stamina, a competitor at Norwalk Havoc, a regular Norwalk Havoc, who asks, is Lynx going to be going for its third Golden Brett at NHRL this year? Which events are you planning to go to so he knows which ones to avoid?
He's the one that beat me, though.
Right?
Oh, well, there you go.
No, yeah, with BattleBots is kind of up in the air right now as far as the filming dates. So I'm not quite sure when I'm going to be able to make it to Norwalk Havoc. I was thinking after the event, so that would possibly leave only like September. But yeah, I'm not sure yet. But I would like to come back and compete with Lynx, just to get it qualified, and then I'd also like to bring back a bigger, better mixtape.
Excellent.
Yeah,
as would we all.
I mean,
like
that
to
robot
see
was just kind of thrown together after the first version with the fan and the duct and stuff didn't quite pan out. So I just wanted a flamethrower robot that would, shoot fire reliably and kind of do nothing else.
It did it very well.
A decent robot.
For sure.
I never expected it to win. Like the first time out at Norwalk with mixtape, I won one fight and lost two. So, I mean, that's what I was expecting for when I came back. Maybe win one fight, probably definitely lose two. But yeah, I think I did like 7 fights that day with mixtape. That was just
Nuts.
beyond
my imagination of like how far it could go.
If you had to fight yourself at some point, if they both, let's say hypothetically, they both qualify for the finals, they're the last two going. You've won every single fight with both of them. Which do you choose to drive?
Probably Lynx. Just because I feel like mixtape is a pretty easy robot to drive. You just kind of do the thing where you just sit in the middle of the arena and spin. And then
the Jake Ewart
if you're in the middle of the arena, you could pretty much reach wall, like all the way to the wall. So you don't really need to get close or anything. Being in the flame, 2 feet away from mixtape is the same as being in the flame, an inch away from mixtape. So it's kind
the driving challenge is higher with Lynx, basically.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And, with mixtape, you just got to kill it quick, and then before it gets time to heat up. Like basically with mixtape, for the first minute, it's not doing anything because just all the heat's getting absorbed and things are getting up to temperature, but not quite melting yet. So for the first full minute of a match with mixtape, I'm just losing. And then after the minute to a minute 30 where I run out of fuel, that's when stuff starts to happen and things start to melt. And then after a minute 30, if the fight's still going, then I don't have any gas left and I'm back to losing. So,
there's a sweet spot in the middle.
A nice little window. Yeah, you got a nice little window in the middle there.
Where I can win a fight.
Steve, do you want to take the next one?
I will. So Razor259 on YouTube asks, and we kind of sort of touched on it earlier with Matt's experience driving a 3 as compared to driving a 250. How often do you practice driving, and how would you compare driving a 3-pound robot to a 250-pound robot for someone who hasn't?
Yeah, so during the build season, we'll try to get a robot up and running and driving as soon as possible. Obviously, that's harder to do if we're doing a full rebuild versus a year where we're just kind of making some small improvements. But yeah, we'll usually try driving the robot every weekend. I mean, for a few months coming up to the event. So I do get some driving practice, but the surface isn't exactly the same as the BattleBox Arena floor. So like driving on concrete, it's way more zippy and snappy, and it gets a lot more grip on concrete than it does on the BattleBox Arena. So those driving dynamics don't quite exactly transfer over 1-to-1, which is unfortunate.
Maybe somebody will crack that formula someday, and they could just pass
actually,
around a piece of the floor. Try it out.
Actually, what Aaron does with Tantrum is he adds just enough magnets to that, so where the friction coefficient with the BattleBox Arena is the same as driving on concrete.
He's a clever man, isn't he? That
yeah. So all his driving practice
silly.
carries over.
That's so
which is pretty sweet. But yeah, driving my cutter is just a lot more sluggish. You feel that 250 pounds behind the weight of the robot, and it takes longer for it to stop and longer for it to accelerate. And when you turn it, it tends to overturn because it has all that rotational momentum keeping it turning once you've initiated. So it's definitely a different beast when it comes to driving.
Absolutely. It's the way I've described it before is kind of like having driven similar scale machine, just like, one's a lot more floaty than the other one. The heavyweights are way floatier than the kind of precise, more nimble beetles and ants.
You really need to think about where you're going.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
It's very,
As
very
opposed to
that's a great way of putting it.
You turn the wheel and then it kind of goes straight for a little while, and then it starts turning, and then to stop the turn, you got to stop turning, well before you want to actually go straight.
100%. It's kind of surreal when it kind of it all that you can almost feel it going. You're gonna kind of hold it. It's
and then that anticipation where it's going to get to where you want it to be, but you don't want to oversteer or
100%. Jevon.
Yeah, Darren Catalane on YouTube asks, how do you make Lynx so successful? And do you have any tips for builders who want to achieve a similar level of success? Or, as Henry Strang put it on Discord, how do Beetle good?
So with Lynx, the first version was, not great. It had the same, similar proportions and everything, had 4-wheel drive, had the same shape, dimension like egg beater. But just through competitions and through trial and error, you see what breaks and what's hard to work on. And, you look at other builders' robots and see how they build things. And you just implement those improvements into your robot slowly and but surely. And so if you're not going to an event trying to figure out what can be improved on your robot, I feel like that's a easy way to kind of stagnate. So just keep making those small improvements wherever you can, and it all adds up to make a really solid robot. So I think anyone can do that with any robot of theirs and do really well.
It's always looking for the weakest area of the machine, right? You can. It's all well and good, saying, okay, I've got this massive strength in, say, the weapon, for example. I can hit really hard, but eventually, someone will figure out how to stop that. And then you got to figure out, well, actually, what else can I do to improve it? It's no good having a big weapon and no drive power and no grip or anything like that. It's all just incremental things.
What makes Lynx unique is that I've designed it to be a control bot as far as its drivetrain goes with a weapon. So it's like Claw Viper with an egg beater.
It's terrifying.
So I have the drive motors on Lynx they have 22 millimeter stator or a 28 millimeter OD. But that's kind of it'd probably be the bare minimum for a 12-pounder robot. But I have it in a 3. And then I've incrementally through trial and error beefed up the drivetrain so that I don't get any more broken gears in my gearboxes, and the belts have big enough teeth to where they don't strip. And then so I've dedicated a lot of weight to the drivetrain, and And the weapons basically stayed the same for a long time. I've used the same motor. But yeah, I think the drive is really where Lynx shines.
Yeah, so it really the true answer is build something, go to an event, lose, and then iterate and get it better.
Yeah.
That's really the way forward for any robot competition, really, because you're gonna. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, you don't have to lose either. Like, you break plenty of things winning too.
Oh, of course, absolutely.
Steve, we've been doing this all wrong.
Just compete.
I know. Well,
just compete is a good way of putting it. Yeah,
I've had one good event of like 6.
I'll get back to you when I've had a good one.
There's always time. It's one in 3 weeks, Jeff, and you'll be fine.
I swear I fell backwards into those victories though. But hey, it's whatever.
Commodore Z or Z on Twitter asks, it feels like we've seen a lot of different variations of Gassy Cat supporting Mad Catter. How many variations or versions of Gassy Cat have there been over the years?
Let's see. So the first version of the Gas Cat was a D2 kit with a flamethrower like duct taped on top.
Love that. I love that.
Yeah, and that one worked great. When we fought Battlesaw, a big like ring spinner. They got a nice hit on the gas tank because it was on top, and then it just exploded in a nice big poof fireball. So we've been wanting to recreate that like ever since. So like since then, Gassy Cat has, since we have our sponsorship with Bot Kits, we've always wanted to make Gassy Cat look like a D2 kit. So we still use the D2 kit motors and wheels, but we'll 3D print a TPU chassis for it that has a flamethrower, fit in between the motors, and we'll stick a D2 wedge on it and a bot kit sticker. And then the paint job that Katie puts on is always really cool. And this year it's like a cat with a gas mask on it. It's pretty sweet. You can see in the that like infomercial that Lisa does with the mini bots. She's holding it. It's great.
I think Mad Catter's artwork in general for over the last few years has been incredible. Like every year it just gets slightly more bananas. Look at this year's. It's
I know, like the eyes on the pontoons this year they're just so crazy, and it looks even better up close, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. It's mad, isn't it?
Like looking into bowls.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Looking into deep space.
Yes.
It's seen some things.
But, yeah, we also made another mini bot this year. I think we called it what was it? Crazy Cat or something. But it was just one of my mixtape modules so I took the nozzle from mixtape, and then I made a self-contained unit that just bolts onto a butane can, and then sold that to other teams this year on BattleBots. So
very good.
The goal of having more fire on BattleBots, and everyone wants to have fire, but it's always like it's very, very low on the priority list. So I just sold a kit that people could like zip tie onto the robot and call it a day.
Doesn't hurt, does it, at the end of the day?
So yeah, I sold quite a few of them.
Excellent.
But they are kind of big, so it's kind of hard to fit on a robot without like hindering your self-riding ability and stuff. But I think it only weighed like 1.5 pounds, so you could pretty much find a spot, or you could find weight for it on.
That's almost decorative, That's almost decorative weight,
right?
So you can, you may as well.
So that was the goal with it. It's just make a very minimal flamethrower. But basically, so we made one mini bot where we just stuck one of those in between 2 wheels, and just use that because it weighed I think overall it weighed like 3 pounds.
Incredible.
So we could throw it in whenever we wanted to have fire, just for fun.
And so they should. Steve.
Yes. So Sensei Solo on Twitter. On a scale of 1 to Martin Mason, how chaotic would a heavyweight mixtape be?
I mean, with BattleBots rules, heavyweight mixtape would just be worse gruff, right?
I saw this question when I was compiling them.
Free shipping.
I saw this question when I was compiling them, and I thought it's just gruff, isn't it? That's just what it is.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I think gruff and free shipping have flamethrowers down enough to where we don't need a mixtape, and I don't think having a mixtape heavyweight would do anything better than them.
But what if though? Oh, well.
Like if BattleBots allowed like a 20-foot flamethrower, then yeah, that'd be pretty sweet. But
yeah,
you know,
I think that's outside that box that they draw on the board just a bit.
Yeah, but like as is, like basically mixtape is a heavyweight flamethrower in a beetleweight.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason why it's like so crazy and so amazing, is because of the scale. And it doesn't quite scale up.
Yeah, imagine that. I mean, what scale would you have to go to? What size flamethrower would you have to go to?
Yeah,
to have it scale up to be a heavyweight, and it'd be like a gigabot. You know what I mean? Flamethrower, like something.
Yeah, I'd have to like actually like spew
like Transformers level
but a
gasoline
jet
or
engine.
something crazy.
Yeah. Let me just call up Airbus. I'm sorry. No.
Well, next question follows on quite nicely from that, which is from ominous team captain Tim Bowens, who asks, is there such thing as too much fire?
I don't think so. No, you can always add more. Makes things better.
It's
Actually,
definitely
during
does.
a fight, it's really
shit.
hard to see where your robot is and where the opponent is, because the fire is so bright and it's kind of pretty opaque as far as like seeing through it goes. So like it's hard to tell if the robot, or if like my opponent, it's still like, you know, like in the fire, or if they've like managed to escape and they're around the back, but I'm just like my eyes are still
spewing it this way, you
are
know?
still like not focused, but like exposed to the fire, so I can't see anything around it because it's just all black and dark, right? So yeah, it's a interesting robot to fight with, because you hardly know what's going on yourself.
More chaos. Well, we'll have some more questions from listeners later on, but in the meantime, we have got quite an episode to get through.
You're not kidding.
There's just so many great fights, so I hope we're all kind of strapped in and ready to go with this one. Because first things first, Minotaur and free shipping starting things off. We mentioned a lot of fiery robots already. Here's one of them. And
Gary with the box rush.
Yeah,
as he does.
Yeah, and
This
I'll be
was
honest,
a great fight.
it was really good.
It was really good.
The result is what I expected, but the journey there was better than I thought.
The journey there
was
excellent.
Yeah,
it was so Robo Games. This is. I know that this isn't everyone's free shipping. Like it's a version of Original Sin, but if this is what's going to be on the Robo Game scene soon, then I'm all for it. Like this is going to be very cool to watch, and a decent competitor. Like this version of free shipping is way more durable than the previous View. It held up against Minotaur, against all odds. Like it kept going for a long old time in there, and had them on the ropes at one point.
Kind of in the
Maybe
corner
early
a little
on.
bit.
Just a punching bag anymore.
Yeah.
No.
Very
Serious
impressive.
contender.
And I will say, I think my favourite bit of this whole fight was when it was a Minotaur moment, actually, when the Minotaur team fired the pulverizer and just pulled free shipping down onto Minotaur's drum. It was fantastic. Really clever tactics from them as well. It was just a really nice little fight. As I said, the result was as I expected, but the way we got there was brilliant. Free shipping took a lot of hits. You saw it lose a wheel eventually, but those wheels must be made of an obtainium or something, because they weren't coming off after several hits. And yeah, fair play. I mean, it was a marked improvement from what we've seen in previous seasons from free shipping.
Yeah.
Well, you say
it
that.
keeps like the balance of the robot good, so that he can still drive on, like just the back wheels or something. Like whereas like
we've seen it drive on one.
Like if you lose the front wheel, like that's where all your weight is, and you're kind of doomed after that. So yeah, they do a good job of keeping the spirit of free shipping.
Yeah,
absolutely,
100%.
And 1-on-1 at the minute. I mean, it's better than free shipping has been doing, and against this you've got to think is their hard match out of the four, if you've got your hard match, your easy match, and then your two level pegging, then this is your hard one. And he made it look fun, and he made it look like he stood a chance in it. So it's a pretty strong loss, I would say.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If you're thinking of tournament potential consequences, at the moment I'd say free shipping are kind of in that maybe 10 to 25 area, maybe. Like it's not
Yeah, maybe.
it did well against Gigabyte. It had a good showing against Minotaur. I think Minotaur's going to be right towards the top. From what we've seen so far, it's just been incredibly impressive. And Daniel Freitas just seems like he's on a mission. Like he's just the way that he was driving in this fight as well. Like the kind of did the gyro like flip and then sort of caught it in midair and thought, now just go back the other way. And
I mean, you've got to imagine that he's gunning hard for these first two wins because the next two, not to steal the thunder of Steve here, but Cobalt and Witch Doctor to come is a tough lineup for anyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it is. They had to get this win as well as the previous, otherwise they're looking a little bit ropey if they don't get the other two.
Yeah, their prospects look grim if they don't, do what they need to do in these first couple of fights, and then from there, hopefully keep taking care of business, because that's a tough two bots to draw in a row. So I don't envy them, but you know what, they might be up to the task. We will have to see. But this is a marked improvement over the last free shipping that we saw. It's very impressive to see how much of a beating he can take. I feel like we've always known that. But there's less things to break on this one. There's less superfluous design choices.
And it can run upside
this
down.
one.
This one can run upside down.
That's true. I will miss the possibility of having a forklift flail. But after that, it's a very impressive bot, and I'm looking forward to its Robo Games appearances. I am upset that it landed on that hexed area of the arena where things just go to die.
and sure enough, it did again. Another death in that corner, and I think. Because one of the wheels was definitely spinning. I don't think all of them were. And I think the one that was spinning was the one that had the tire kind of go on it. So it was struggling, to say the least.
And
so
free shipping was not necessarily flat anymore.
No.
So any tweak in your frame, especially in that spot, just seems to be just a mix for a very unhappy recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
But hey.
Well, we've mentioned Minotaur's upcoming fights. Who are free shipping, Steve?
Yeah. So Minotaur's got a fight, currently undefeated, Cobalt, and then we have free shipping going up against Hydra, but it's not Hydra's next fight. So Hydra currently sitting at 1-0. So we still have to wait and see their fight against Tantrum, which is the rematch of the century, currently being billed. So we will see how that goes.
We will indeed.
And then after that, who knows?
Who knows indeed. Fight number 2 for this week. Well.
It's another great fight. Honestly.
It really is. This was
so awesome to see live.
It was either this one or a fight coming up later on, which we'll talk about later, which was the best fight of the episode. But if this is not the best fight of the episode, then you've had a good episode, right? And
I think this was one of the best driving performances, not necessarily one of the best fights, because it was so one-sided.
I know it was. Claw Viper, what PEDs has that been taking this year? Because it was just
like
the right ones.
Yeah, some serious juice has gone into that robot, and it's just unbelievable to watch.
Yeah, this was.
Yeah, so he has the same drive motors as all the other years, but he just has more magnets now, so that it performs like his other 12-pound robot. That
I was going to ask. Calvin, watching this fight, you must have been thinking, "Oh, I would love to have a drive of Claw Viper."
Oh yeah,
it just seems like it's right up your street. It's the way that it was moving around was like, "Oh, do you know what? That's pretty
it's
special."
The physics. We've always said that the
Beetleweight
physics of a Beetleweight don't scale up, and then you watch this sort of thing and go, "Oh well, maybe kind of," because it drives so like a Beetle.
Yeah, unfortunately, so he's using the Brazil tires, just a smaller diameter. But he was burning through one set every match. So if he celebrates after the fight or does too much of a show, how they showboat before the fight starts, he's running a risk of just beaching himself on his own robot.
Because he's
So,
running so many
it's
magnets too. Like that's even more the fact of like you can't file your wheels down to nothing. There's no
yeah,
give there.
right. Yeah. So it's a very fine line that he's running. So it's but it's crazy to see this fight, against
Yeah.
Ribbot. Ribbot's
And
no slouch. Their weapon does not stop spinning. Like even when they're getting picked up, they're still spinning full speed, and he's just going in for the grab. It was awesome to see.
The wall found out.
I was going to say we saw that from the arena itself. I mean, there was the big chunk taken out from the driver kind of standing booth, which is like a nice little cut in there, and then it's the second one which kind of makes you like kind of go ooh, because
again,
all the glass is just shattered by, and I'm like, has that gone
production
through?
stopped for about half an hour. While they fixed that, and it was incredible to see. This was one of the best nights of robot combat fights, and this was, I think, second fight out of the evening. It was, This came after a fight I think we'll see next week. But yeah, this was fantastic. And even after this is where we went and spoke to our dear friend Mike Jeffries. Jeffries.
Not Jeff Jeffries.
Not Jeff Jeffries. And even he said that's one of the best fights I've ever seen. Like it was incredible. And that was at the start of that night where we've seen some other stuff.
As for Ribbot, bit of a mountain to climb for those guys.
A little bit of soul searching happening right now with this bot.
They've got
what do they do?
They've got Jackpot next, who have only had one fight so far but struggled in that fight. I think they fight Rotator next week, I think. And who's their fourth fight, Ribbot?
Ribbot's fourth fight would be Scorpius.
It's not easy because Scorpius, as we said, has now got an answer for a vertical, and also we know it eats horizontals for breakfast.
Yeah. I think the concerning thing is that this was probably their easy fight, and they didn't win it by a lot.
It's a big ask for now for Ribbot. I feel like they need to. I don't know what they're going to do because the next two fights are tough, and it's really going to be an interesting challenge to see how they deal with that. But yeah, as you said, Steve, a bit of soul searching to be done for them.
Yeah, it's almost like they're going through like a LockJaw style season where like LockJaw was a top 4 robot. I think it was 2018, and then the following year it just all went to poop. And then from there, it's just it's trying to climb back up the mountain again. I think they'll find their way. They need to get one win to really make an argument to creep into the lower end of the top 32. They're definitely not going to be scratching for a top 4 spot this time. It's going completely ass backwards this time. But I mean that's what happens sometimes at these events. It doesn't always go to plan, and you'll have fights like this that you think you're supposed to win going in, and then you end up with one of the best Claw Vipers we've ever seen.
I think this is where the like knowing the matches ahead of time thing helps out with from an audience perspective, especially knowing that we know who they've got. They've not been given easy fights because they're struggling, and so they shouldn't really, because it's a sport and you get who you get, and they've just got to try and make the best of that situation. So
it's definitely going to be interesting to see how they recover, because we've seen they can do it before. They did really well in Golden Bolt after kind of struggling with Hydra in that round of 32 fight last year. So time to dig deep again for the Ribbot team. We mentioned they're fighting Jackpot next. Who has Claw Viper got next, Steve?
Yeah, so Ribbot has Jackpot next, and Jackpot currently 0-1, but it's not Jackpot's next fight. This is when things start to get a little fuzzy. So Claw Viper's next fight, I believe, is against Overhaul, if I'm not mistaken.
Grababot Nation.
Yeah. So that'll be quite a tasty morsel for the future. I think that's 2 episodes in the future, so we'll be getting that fight soon.
Ooh.
So I look forward to seeing how Claw Viper goes up against probably one of the oldest of the new guard. I know that was one of the bots that has been around since the show came back. So it'll be fun to see how how far grabbers have come since the show came back, and I think we're already kind of starting to see it. But this might be a formality of what's to come. Who knows? Maybe Overhaul shocks the world and puts this Claw Viper back in its place, but we'll see.
We will see. Fight 3. We mentioned SawBlaze a little bit. LockJaw and SawBlaze. We mentioned LockJaw as well, to be fair. LockJaw and SawBlaze. LockJaw with no frills attached.
This was such a strange look for LockJaw. It looked naked.
It didn't look right, did it? It just didn't look like. Where's
it
the
looks
green?
naked because any of his bots have things sticking out. Tazbot has things sticking out all over. LockJaw usually does. Dissector has forks and like jaws and attachments and all kinds of stuff out the back. Where is all the stuff that's usually on this robot?
I was going to say, in this picture that's on screen, for those who can't see it, it's the promo image of the LockJaw for this season with those new
chicken
fork
feet
things. Yeah.
Images,
They would have been quite good in this fight, maybe?
Well,
who knows?
Did he overthink himself? Did he think JMO's got the ground game and I might as well not even run ground game? Because I think that happens to people.
That's got to be the only thing in my mind. Like, surely he must have thought, okay, SawBlaze is going to be under me anyway. Doesn't really matter. Why don't I just have no ground clearance? I just hit him with the weapon instead.
Give him less to hit. Do like the Victor Soto. Yeah. Let me give him less to take off my bot.
Yeah, what we learned in the SawBlaze fight is that, first our ground game sucks, but it also
we know, Calvin.
It's also really nice to be able to monster truck over and out of his forks.
Mm-hmm.
So LockJaw has those big kind of monster truck wheels, and I think the goal was to get as much ground clearance as much out of the way so they could escape SawBlaze when he inevitably does scoop you up.
Mm-hmm.
And SawBlaze did do that, and it did scoop up LockJaw, delivered a beautiful hit underneath the robot. We kind of saw it turn it over and hit that kind of thinner skin on the bottom. We saw SawBlaze destroy Screwjob.
Yeah.
With the revert, it kind of did the same thing they did to Gassy Cat last year, backed up and used the vert. It was so cruel. Obviously didn't watch the
LockJaw took out the weapon.
Yes, well, this is true. Had this fight go on longer and LockJaw does not get beached on the spike strip, it's possible that this fight goes a different way. Maybe LockJaw finds a way to get behind him, and because he doesn't have that scary blade anymore. I mean, he can still clamp him and drive him, but there's that kill factor that's missing.
Plus the burning through wheels issue that SawBlaze has been facing this season.
Flamethrower's gone too. Chewed that up early.
Yeah.
I will say one of the wheels of LockJaw was locked, so that initial hit in the bottom I think killed one of the drive motors or something, because there is a shot later in the replays where you can kind of see the 3 wheels are driving, but one of them is locked in place.
I think that's just when they got stuck,
they couldn't get
one
down
of the wheels couldn't get them down. So
and it's such an unlucky hit too. It's a hit off of SawBlaze's front that puts him up on the spike strip, and in such a way where one of the wheels that is not, each wheel that is not working is on the ground, but the ones that are just kind of kicking the air are the one that's working. I mean, LockJaw, it's clear LockJaw's hurting pretty bad after this fight. But
so
I think
SawBlaze.
Yeah, I know. I think JMO's feeling pretty good about getting out of that one, because that could have gone completely the other way had it gone. It might have gone completely the other way. Have the fight, continue. Never know. We'll never know because LockJaw gets beached. But that's maybe that's my fanboyism coming out. But I like to think he had a chance.
I mean, Calvin, you have first-hand experience fighting SawBlaze. Is checking there's anything that they could have done differently to maybe steer the fight in the other direction?
I don't remember what happened to the weapon, but LockJaw is really good this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, they're solid every year, but this year they.
Well, there are a fight of yours on the. I'll say there are a fight of yours on the horizon.
I was going to say, yeah.
We maybe taking a few notes of this fight as well. Maybe see what weaknesses you can find.
I don't remember if I saw this one. It might have been after our fight, so we were taking out batteries or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't remember seeing this fight live.
Fair enough.
Do you take the strategy of I know we talked to Diana a few weeks ago from Scorpios, and do you just take the idea of him just burning his whole bot up and just try to last the 3 minutes? If you can't break him, let him break himself over time.
Yeah, but LockJaw hits really hard too.
This is true. This is true. So not only do you have to let him burn up, you also have to avoid the hits he gives out. So I mean, that's kind of
It's just
a
a good
staple
robot
of the combat. Oh
like,
yeah,
all around.
Absolutely. Steve,
yes.
who have these two got next?
Well, it's not the next fight of Scorpios, but they have Scorpios. Scorpio still has to get through one bot still, but we'll get to see the fabled Hammer Saw versus Hammer Saw fight. Possibly. I know that we've talked with Diana about Scorpios' many attachments. We will see if they go Saw v Saw or if they go a completely different direction. We will see. And then LockJaw has currently 0-1 Glitch. So that's going to be a tasty morsel going forward. Glitch looking to kind of get back on track after getting completely manhandled by Riptide early on in that fight. So this is hopefully the bot will be ready. I know that they were very much similar to the previous season of trying to get this bot into the arena and making sure it's ready to go. So if you're going up against LockJaw, you better be ready. So we'll see.
We will. Fight 4. This is like
a strange draw.
I mean, it's like a dream fight for me. I love both of these robots. They're both incredible to. They're so different as well.
Yeah,
that's the beautiful thing.
Couldn't be more different.
They really couldn't be. Huge is this gargantuan, awkward beast of a robot, and then Blip is kind of your compact,
just this tiny little thing.
Yeah, it's spectacular with its Zorro mask on as well, which is
yeah.
Interesting as well that Huge didn't use the Tegris wheels. I thought, because I think it's mostly just for softer landings, and because if Blip drives at them, they're more likely to flex rather than the Tegris ones, which are more solid.
Absolutely,
I think that's kind of the theory.
That has to be 100% the reason why they went with the softer wheels. I believe they were seriously concerned with having trouble if landing hard. Because their wheels, they're still on axles. That's a lot of stress on that one spot on the robot. So having something that's compliant against a flipper is an advantage if you can put it into your
Blip
bot.
did get some flips in, which we were kind of
big time.
Yeah, that was really surprising. Aaron did a great job
can
driving.
flip Huge if you try.
It was interesting because we were all kind of saying, okay, that we said it when Blip had its, we were talking about its next fight against Huge. It's just like it's a terrible draw. It's a terrible, terrible draw because what's the point of trying to flip it? Because where do you flip? Well, as it turns out, if you just fire it at the wheels, you can do it.
Yeah,
as we saw.
So you don't need massive bike cracks. It's fine.
We'll never forget the bike crack.
Though to be fair, Blip didn't win, so maybe you do. Who knows?
Well, I was going to say there must have been we'll have to ask Aaron at some point this season, but I'm sure there must have been some temptation to do something, dastardly and just try something different. But they're not that way, are they? They're not.
Sam,
no.
You remember we told you the story how the first session we saw, the first fight was an unstick.
This was the first fight of the second session.
No, this was the first fight of the fourth session,
Right.
and it's once again an unstick. The only session that so far hadn't had an unstick in the first fight was session 3, and that it's just a little bit cursed. But we were very nearly late for this.
Yes,
because we were trying to sort out. I can't remember what we were trying to sort out, or did we get stuck in traffic or something?
Was this me trying to sort out the rent car? I think
no. That was the morning.
That was the day previous. That was the morning.
It was. This was the day previous.
That was
No, it was that. It was this morning, but
yes,
this is the afternoon or the evening session.
Yes, because I had left to go get the car after the first session.
Right.
What a mess.
Incredible. But we got it. This was the first fight of the best night of robot combat, and it was
another great fight. I mean, Blip was winning until it's not the big. I call it the axe in the head hit because
it's not the brain trauma.
That's what it looked like. It was quite visceral, that hit, wasn't it? But there was a hit before that where Blip's flipper doesn't quite reset, and it's kind of just up a little bit.
And we'd missed that in the stands. It looked like the Blip was flipping before the unstick and wasn't flipping afterwards. They were like, is it broken as they've tried to unstick it? No, it hasn't. It was done in before that, and I'm pleased because it means that we don't have to blame an unstick for more damage, which is good.
No controversy here. No.
No.
And we got to see Trey Cam, which was fun.
Yes,
we did.
Trey walk. I mean, first of all, it's always funny just watching Trey walk in with the crowbar, like menacingly towards the robot.
And just kind of go like,
Yeah, that's what he does.
What have you guys done?
And sigh. But you gotta think. So we had unstick on this fight, followed by the Claw Viper Ribbot incident where they had to fix arena damage. It's just like, oh man.
He was probably fed up at the end of that evening, wasn't he?
Yeah, the nerves are starting to go. Like, are we going to get our number of fights in on the day?
Yep.
Or are we going to have to?
As it turns
speed them
out,
up?
we did.
We stayed remarkably on schedule. I gotta say, throughout the entirety of filming, there were very few incidents that really put us in jeopardy of, not getting the amount of fights that we're in. I mean, there was a few incidents where we got a little tentative, scared, but happy that production, kept things going.
Any complaints for the decision? I mean, I think personally the damage was correct. It just kind of built up over the course of the fight. It was Blip's fight until the flipper was stopped, and then after that point, it's kind of what can it do apart from break the weapon, which doesn't seem to be happening at all for Huge this year.
Yeah, I think Blip won on control and aggression, but at the point of where Huge is undamaged and Blip has one full system down, you can't even split the point. You can't even give Blip all of the points for control and aggression because Huge was aggressive enough to get the hits in. So, at that point, you're fighting a losing battle.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing about going into a fight with a bot that doesn't have a supremely damaging weapon. You really have to dominate completely, or perhaps have the robot that you're fighting land awkwardly, or end up with hazard damage, or whatever the case. Because it's fighting an uphill battle automatically. I will say, speaking of nerves of steel, what on earth is Aaron Hill on that he doesn't flinch when something flies directly at his head?
Didn't even blink, did he? He was just like,
not at all. Just total locked in. I'd have been halfway across the box.
Stop running away! Stop chasing me.
That was there were a lot.
That's great.
There were so many good bits in this fight. That shot of Aaron just like fully zoned in was like, yeah, do you know what? This guy, he's a serious bloke, isn't he? Yeah. Steve.
Yes.
Who's next for these two?
So Huge goes up against Fusion, but we're about to see Fusion. Currently, would it be 1-0 Fusion? I think they won their first fight. Yes, they did win their first fight. It's already starting to get fuzzy to me. Blip is going up against Tantrum. So we're going to have the seems reasonable brawl. Finally, we almost got it last year. Had they gone all the way to the end, that would have been very curious. But it didn't happen. So production has given us a gift to see what would have happened.
Well, I've got to.
It's amazing. It's amazing that they've had these two bots fight, but the Waiachis haven't fought yet.
Sus.
I think Seems Reasonable is one of the few teams where they actually want to fight each other.
Right.
Well, I think Dylan and Aaron were good friends anyway, so they've fought each other for years, like doing silly things, and I think they knew each other growing up, I think is the story. So I think Dylan always drove, and they're always on the same team. So I don't think they fought each other ever. So I think this is why they want to do it, is because they want to have an Aaron versus Dylan drive off.
Yeah, they want a definitive answer.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
I will say as well,
better.
Blip is 0-2.
It's a strange situation, isn't
Because
it? Because
you got to think that it's facing much higher caliber opponents this season than it did last year. I mean, I love Rusty, but Rusty, and they've got to have a season where it's this. Is it sophomore slump? Is their favorite expression at the minute, or is
yes? That seems to be right on. And we had this conversation with Will last week, where it's like that's why Hypershock goes through this ebbs and flows through its season, because it has a bad season, then it gets lesser caliber opponents, then it has a good season, then it gets thrown the book, and then it goes back down again. So it's this constant wave of emotions and caliber of bot that you're fighting. So maybe Blip's going through a similar situation where they're having to deal with higher caliber opponents, and it's not quite as easy. Not to say that any heavyweight is easy to beat, but there are definitely
I realize I've been saying easy fight and hard fight. It's not what I mean by that at all. It's opponent who should beat you and opponent you should beat on paper.
Yeah
Once the doors are locked,
in your armchair looking through the data, it's like right, okay, sure. And then Claw Viper this year.
I'll say
Yeah.
there is a world in which Blip goes 0-3 against Tantrum as well, which is a really
Honestly.
sticky situation for that team. But
Do you start playing like bracket formula calculations?
I was going to say
Who throw-
it depends on. I think. Well, we'll get to that next week. I feel like because obviously we've got to
Right.
wait and see how Tantrum does with its second fight, because otherwise they could both be 0-2, and then it's really
Honestly.
dire situation.
I know for
Honestly.
a fact that they won't play that. They
No,
will
I
have a
know.
fight proper.
I know they won't as well because they're not that kind of.
But
team,
I know that question's
they
in
could.
the air, you know,
They
because
could.
now that we know the schedules, this, that, and the other, do you start to think, okay, where it's the like in sports where like you've already made the playoffs, do you rest your starters?
I think some teams would.
Yeah.
I don't think that this team will.
We'll
No.
see.
A much shorter season, harder to make that call. So, anyway,
To controversy corner we go.
oh, what a fight this was! Though.
Oh
It doesn't
boy.
matter. Doesn't matter.
Oh,
Controversy.
I want to
Oh.
pick up controversy corner and then leave because it's not a controversy. I think the audience need to remember, and if you're watching this and think that Fusion should have won the fight, then what you need to do is go and read the judge's guide and then come back and talk to us. Because honestly, it's Witch Doctor win.
I would bring in Calvin quickly here, just because this is a fight which is just it's so close. How would you have called it?
I mean, more of Fusion was broken than Witch Doctor at the very end. So, I mean, even though Fusion was consistently doing damage to Witch Doctor like throughout the fight, Witch Doctor did more damage overall to Fusion. And then, I mean, aggression and control, I think Witch Doctor had control by a point. And then Fusion had, I think aggression, maybe Fusion had.
It's very strange because all the judges agree on damage and control, but they disagree on aggression. And with Fusion winning damage.
Yeah.
I would say that Witch Doctor was
interesting.
taking the fights in more.
Because, I mean, Witch Doctor's damage was its wedge, but its
weapon wasn't working
drive was
either as
completely
well, I
working.
think.
And it had lost
and
some drive.
At the end of the fight, you could see Witch Doctor's weapon spinning. So I don't know what was happening.
I wonder if it was because there still isn't that functionality test which we kind of have talked about before, right?
Right.
So it did happen. We just didn't get to see it. It did, yeah.
Okay.
I said about this in the video I did about the changes for this season that these functionality tests, I doubt we'll get to see them on TV.
And
you
sure
might
enough.
see like the start of it, but then they'll edit away from it because you don't need to, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did do a functionality test after. I think they did it after almost every fight.
Okay.
Or if it was a close fight like this one, then they definitely did because they want to get it right.
I can only assume that might have influenced the decision then, because if the weapon is working on Witch Doctor, then then I think you're completely right. There's no doubt in my mind Witch Doctor wins the fight because it's still
But Fusion
pretty
was
much
driving it all, right?
Yeah,
Fusion
it
was
was laboured.
At the
barely
very
driving.
end, it's limping. I think they've lost one side of drive completely, and the other side is just barely hanging on. So it's
Whereas Witch
tough
Doctor had a couple of wheels removed, but it was still driving. I mean, I have
Both
here,
of Fusion's weapons were down, right?
for those who are watching, this is a piece of Witch Doctor's inside of Witch Doctor's wheel hub.
Oh, it's the wheel hub, not the wedge.
This is where the tie would attach
Oh,
on
wow.
top. And it is just a shard of it that's really been gnarled up.
It was.
think
I
it's
mean, I just want to say as
right
well,
or something.
it was just an unbelievable match, wasn't it? Like just
ground and pound, just completely
back and forth is great.
Oh,
this is what this is all you want to see, right? You just want to see two machines knocking snot out of each other, and this is exactly that. And I'm interested to see that they've put the appeal thing in the TV edit. It was finally.
I'm glad.
And I think it was also very smart from Fusion not to use it.
Yeah,
because
it's too early.
Well, it's too early. It's a fight night fight, so unless it was the last one and they needed it to get in, I don't think it really matters.
The fact that it's a close judge's decision that is also split means that it's barely a loss.
That's what I mean. And against Witch Doctor, which is rank 2, 3, so
yeah. But then going back to that again, it's a split decision. What are the odds that you could flip one judge and it goes in your favor? Maybe either Fond or Derek think, okay, maybe aggression was favoring fusion, as Lisa says here. That's very possible. That's about the only way I think this could flip. Maybe you could go back and look at damage and say that fusion was more damaged than Witch Doctor. But both of these bots are hurting at the end here. You really have to look at physical damage, but also system damage. It's so tricky. I'm glad I'm not a judge. They know what they're doing.
Like system damage, and what's if are the spinning things still spinning?
Yeah, exactly.
Are the wheels still turning, rather than cosmetic?
Yeah, well, cosmetic shouldn't be as highly rated as functional damage as by the criteria.
I think the first thing I said when I saw this fight was, I'm so glad I'm not a judge, because I would have no idea how to call this one. It was just like, it was brilliant to watch, but like, asked me to choose a winner, no chance. Absolutely.
There is for anybody who wants to do more research on this, Judge Lisa actually produced a video earlier in the week about how they do the judging and the judge's guide for this year, and breaking it all down for you. So I implore you to go and check that out, because it's a good watch. It's very interesting, and it helps to educate you guys on some of the stuff that to the casual audience won't see. Basically,
I will leave a link in the show notes. How about that? So, with that said, Witch Doctor now goes 2-0, Fusion to 1-1.
1-1, but with a phenomenal loss.
A big asterisk on the one loss. Yeah. Who's next for each of these teams, Steve?
So Fusion has to go up against currently 2-0 Huge. So that's going to be an interesting strategic fight, because I imagine Huge will go with wheels that allow their weapon to just scrape the floor, maybe.
Or short bar and spin down.
Maybe
maybe
to spin down and go through the top, possibly. Because Fusion's so short anyway. So that'll be interesting, and maybe Fusion can shave those wheels down and just take chunks out of them and make Huge's
do
fight,
what
make it tough.
Older brother did, Son of Waiachi,
honestly,
in 2019.
That's the goal. And then Witch Doctor have currently 1-1 Gruff.
Not an easy one.
No.
Gruff is
another fight for Florida supremacy.
Yeah, exactly. not the first time this season. Probably won't be the last either.
No.
Well, next up is
now this
Doomba. I do feel kind of bad for these two teams, because imagine having that amazing Witch Doctor Fusion fight, and then the next fight on TV is Doomba versus Double Tap. Oh.
Well,
this
so interesting notes.
Interesting. Yeah.
So both of these are reserves, obviously. Double Tap got pushed to reserve after not passing safety.
Yeah.
Doomba were reserves anyway, I believe. And Doomba were all set up ready to fight Rusty, who the world prevented Rusty from being ready on time this year somewhat. So yeah, Rusty wasn't ready at that point. You've got to imagine that it should have been somebody like Slammo going in, because they are probably next reserve.
Yeah, similar.
And then Double Tap gets announced to the Doomba team, I think about 10-15 minutes before they go in. Bearing in mind, Doomba are all ready to face a non-spinning weapon. So they have spinner armor, and they would have used it had they had the time to put it on.
And then we saw the results.
Yeah, the face was removed.
It was not very child friendly, was it? That was it.
We got to see a robot brain on late night television.
Seeing your neighbor, your friendly household Roomba splattered across the battle box is just not really what you want to see.
I will also say there is a lot of wiring inside Doomba.
There is
so much wiring.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's a SME pod, right? Inside, is that right? I'm sure someone told me the other day it's a SME pod, because the weapon's kind of similar to the SME weapon.
The weapon is a SME weapon, but I don't know if what's driving it is the same as what SME used.
Fair enough.
But this was just very sad to watch. Double Tap, I must say, moves across the box quite smoothly. Very impressed with that. They look to be kind of figuring out how to get it to go where they wanted it to go, but once they got a drive going, it's not too bad, not too difficult to hit a target that isn't moving very fast.
Plus, they used a nice looking armor package instead of whatever's on screen at the minute.
The welded
kind of hurts
shell.
my eyes.
Yeah, it's not the best looking thing, is it?
You
Bless
woke
them.
you woke me up to this one day, Jevin.
Yes, I did. I went, oh my god. So yeah, we stayed in an Airbnb together, obviously, and one morning David and Steve just heard from my room, oh god, what is it?
It's-
The kind of
then we all looked. And,
is it like a molded fiberglass sort of style thing? The other one, it looks like that.
I
Anyway.
think it is metal.
Oh,
I
is
think
it?
it's metal.
It's welded sheet metal.
Yeah.
But it's all like bent and cool, like geometric patterns and stuff.
Really
pretty
nice.
As opposed to
The welded one. It's I mean, it's a cool idea what they've done, but
the
it's
self-healing armor that looks like it's self-hating armor.
oh dear. Well,
They learnt a lot this season.
I was
think.
gonna say they did pick up a lot of information across the year, didn't they?
It's a shame we didn't see the kind of expulsion style weapon though. I was looking forward to seeing how that would work. But they went with a unibody weapon that they at first I thought it was going to be too high up and horizontal. Maybe they should have put it down, but it didn't matter. They got a pretty darn good bite.
Did you see in the interview the team captain called it their vertical spinner as well?
Yes.
I
I forgot about that. Oh no,
bless him. He tried.
Yeah, it's always a little confusing.
Yeah, definitely for the newer teams for sure.
But the plane of rotation is horizontal. So
Yeah,
always-
definitely.
but it's on the vertical part of the
confusing
robot.
which one is which.
So like if it was on the side, like a wheel.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Stop this.
As opposed to underneath one.
I'm
which
just
is,
making fun. I'm sorry.
I will find
It's hard.
the diagram.
Trust me, I mean, it's tough. Your first time at BattleBots, anybody stick a camera in your face and you got to do an interview. Word salad comes out. It happens. They were super jazzed to be at BattleBots. They looked like they were having the most fun. So it's good to see a brand new team come and bring something really scary looking. Honestly, there was a lot of question marks about what this robot would be and how effective it would be. Seeing the CAD renders and all that stuff, but it's really nice to see a bot that got through the whole process and wasn't just a vapor bot. It actually made.
I'm glad of two things. I'm glad that I'm glad they passed safety first of all, so they actually got the chance to fight. And I'm also glad that their fight got aired on TV instead of being a supporter thing or a YouTube thing at the end of the season, because I think it's important that we also see this side of the sport on TV, like the fun robots or the robots that are there to step in when needed, also having fights, also getting the TV time. They've also got sponsors that they may not have got if they weren't on TV or weren't going to be on TV. So I think it's important that they get the TV time as well.
And we got a good segment of a lot of the bots that are reserves for this season. So we got
to see Terratops on TV.
We did.
Woo!
You were saying, Calvin.
Yeah. It's always cool to see a new robot that's trying new and different things. So no matter if it's good or bad, or it doesn't really matter. It's just cool to see something different.
100%.
Absolutely.
And from a team that were not in combat robots at all before that as well, which is even better.
Yeah,
it's currently
I believe
the best.
they're in the drone industry, aren't they?
Yeah, it's currently the best bot that came from a drone company, I believe.
The competition is Chromefly, so Chromefly was special. Right, we've delayed the inevitable long enough, I feel. We have to talk about that fight. And that fight is the main event of the week. Now, before we kind of dive in, the promo package...
Dubstep Mason.
Dubstep Martin Mason is...
amazing.
It's the only video I will ever need in my life.
Editing team's been on point, haven't they?
Oh,
a lot of
goodness.
nice edits this year so far.
I want to know what kind of substances the editing team were taking at 3 a.m. when they put this together.
Good ones.
Clearly.
The good ones.
Clearly. It was spectacular. And
it's really cool to see them feature the 3-pound fights too.
I was going to say, they're exciting that a lot more.
I think that will really help, the community and get new builders. Because besides, in previous years, BattleBots has never acknowledged other competitions.
Nope.
And so the fact that they, are showing that there are these lower weight categories that are cheaper to get into, and
you can go and see them for
just anyone can enter. You don't have to apply. You don't have to find sponsors. You don't have to spend $1 bajillion on a gigantic robot. Like it's it should help out the just get people in the hobby and get people building. And I think that's really cool.
I know that old Robot Wars used to do it, where they had smaller weight classes, and even toward the end of the season, they had that like ant weight rumble in that little mini Robot Wars box, which was adorable. But
it's kind of like the grassroots, isn't it? Like of the sport, and that's kind of what you want to have more people be like, oh, I've seen that on TV. I wonder if there's anything local to me, which people will do now, right? Because we've seen it with Star Child last week. We've seen it with obviously yourself this week, Calvin.
Yeah, because otherwise your search just extends to where is BattleBots filmed.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that your search doesn't go any further.
Yeah, robotcombatevents.com, buildersdb.com, tons of events across the country and the world.
BristolBotBuilders.com events calendar.
BristolBot Builders, there's all sorts of things going on all over the place.
Stream robots.
Yep, exactly. Personal question for you, Calvin. How cool was it to have Lynx, your robot, and not just Mad Catter, the team's robot, on TV?
That was pretty cool. I mean, it was never expecting to, have a beetleweight featured on TV, and to see it on the big screen is pretty neat.
Millions of people have now seen that robot. It must be quite daunting.
So what's the process that production comes to you and says, hey, we're gonna write this story about you and Riptide, and what was maybe this
how was it initiated,
questions.
sort of thing?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
So, well, I had no idea what they're going to do at filming,
right?
Because we got the matchup and we knew why we were matched up.
Yeah, I think everyone and their mother knows why.
We weren't sure how they were going to show it on TV. And then a few months ago, I got an email asking for pictures of me and Lynx at small events and stuff. So I sent some over, but I still wasn't sure how they're going to portray either of our teams on TV. So I think overall, they did a good job of explaining. Not all of it's it's a little dramatized for TV, but so like not everything's completely accurate, but generally I think they did a decent job.
Yeah. So I guess I'll while we're talking about this is kind of out of order in the questions, but a foolish banana on Twitter asks, was any of the drama between the Mad Catter and Riptide teams overblown by production, or is it really how the show told it?
So it's not.
And you can say what you want or not. I'm not really putting you on the spot.
You can say "Shut up, Steve" if you like.
I mean, we're not as close with their team as we are with other teams.
That's a very diplomatic way of putting it.
I respect all the time and effort and that they put into their robot, like every other team. And I mean, we still let them use our tools. We let them use our hydraulic press after the fight to repair their weapon. So it's not all bad.
That's
good to hear.
Good.
Let's settle that now, because I know I mean the edit. I did say nice things about the edit, but the edit really does go pretty hard into this. I don't know if they dug too deep, where they kind of drum up too much drama, because there's like at least 4 times in this episode where they say, "Oh, Riptide is a scaled up version of Lynx." They nicked Calvin's design, this, that, and the other.
Which, by the way, has also sparked massive flame wars all over Facebook this week with various teams and not even in competing this year. Like, it's crazy.
Past teams, yeah.
It's been a bit of a fire.
What's the line, Yeah. But the thing is, like, it's so difficult to say that, like, let's think about how many tomb clones there are. We have one in this event, called Triton. It's very it's very tombstoney, but it's not exactly the same kind of robot. There's different liberties taken. It's even more weapon than armor. But like, what's the argument for having a design all your own, as opposed to taking something from something that you've seen and scaling it up? There was a good conversation on Twitter about a robot called K2 that influenced the vert meta that we currently see. Honestly,
Right.
like where do you stop having the conversation of what where's the origin? Like whose bot is it anymore?
Who invented the wheel?
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm completely fine with taking inspiration from Lynx or from any other robot, the competitive robot. You look at other robots that are competitive and that win events. And when Ethan was building his beetleweight, he saw that Lynx was winning every SoCal event since 2018 or so. So obviously, you want to, if you want to build a competitive robot, you base it off of other competitive robots. Like my first robot was a 1 pound tomb clone with wheel guards. That didn't do a whole lot. But yeah, I mean, yeah, making or basing your robot off other robots is completely fine and expected. But I mean, BattleBots is a TV show first and a competition second, right? So like all the builders know that. So every single team has made compromises to get on the show and put on a good show. Like when Hypershock first started, they had a full composite, carbon fiber chassis and lifting arms and all this crazy stuff. And that's in not the most repairable design.
It's hard to clean up.
Witch Doctor has a mini bot and canted wheels and the whole like ribs and voodoo get up, and that takes time and weight and money and effort. And I think every single team has made those compromises to give their bot character. So it is like its own persona, not just a theme for the team, but the whole character as is. And then so that's why I think a lot of us were surprised that Riptide got picked to be a full competitor, because it's generally just a black box.
It is based egg beater, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, and no frills. So that's I think that's part of what stems the controversy.
I was talking to the Behind the Bots guys earlier in the week about sort of what Riptide is in the sport at the moment. I think they are there with a robot that they want to win BattleBots with. And I think in the terms of the sport, that is fine. It is expected that you want to go get a giant nut, take it home with you. You've got the hardest hitting robot there, and you're going to go and do that, and that's fine. It doesn't do anything for me in terms of like it's not pushing anything. It's not really pushing the envelope of design wise. What is out there? It's so cool, inspiring others to do things. They're there for them to go and do the thing, and that's fine. They go and do that. It's not there for anybody else to go, and I want to do that also. I think that's the thing for me. It just doesn't.
It doesn't wow you.
Spark as much joy. No.
To the fight itself, I suppose we kind of have to get to that point.
It hits plenty hard, though, doesn't it?
Well, I was going to say.
Oh, absolutely.
The first question I was going to ask. Well, we kind of touched on the first part of the question, which from a guy called Jeremy Lloyd on Facebook, who says, "I'm glad that Lynx is now canon in BattleBots. Were you tempted at all to use it as a mini bot in this fight?"
No, I mean, it would have been vaporized. And I want to keep it around.
Absolutely fair enough.
At least it got to push the button, right?
Yes, it was so like you bring it out, like giving it the big and like that was brilliant. I was a big fan of that. Talk us through the strategy, because as we've kind of alluded to, Riptide is an absolute beast. We saw it.
Yeah,
You know,
it's a unit.
It beat Glitch in 2 hits.
No argument.
Were you concerned going in thinking, okay, this is going to be an absolute stinker for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were pretty stumped because, I mean, we can't turn Mad Catter into a 500-pound droopy all of a sudden. So that was pretty early on, clearly out of the question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as like, going up against him, I mean, I designed Lynx to beat robots like Mad Catter and other vertical spinners and other horizontals and stuff. So, yeah, we were debating for a long time what we should use to try to fight Riptide. So we're looking at Riptide's past fights and past fights where I've lost with Lynx and really big chunky forks. So, SawBlaze's forks are obviously like real thick and heavy duty, and Defender's forks as well. And then I fought Nate with Thunderchild at Motorama.
Was it in weight
in
that
2020? And I just could not get a hit on him. So so our idea was to put on our sword attachment, the one that we used in the Black Dragon fight last year. It wasn't as beefy and as heavy duty as we probably would have liked, but it was the best we had. And the goal was to just jam that in their weapon and try to get their weapon to hit that first, and like on the downstroke, and pop themselves up. And then we would try to, get control after that. But yeah, it didn't really work out.
I mean, the first
kind
few
of popped
exchanges,
the fork up and then hit us on the fork and it flipped us over. So I don't know what we'd do if we were to fight them again.
I mean, the first few exchanges were looking quite good. Like the initial few hits were looking really good. You turned Riptide over, and then it kind of just bounced straight back.
That was a pure weapon on weapon shot, and it kicks Riptide back, and we're thinking, okay, this could possibly work.
Hitting Riptide weapon on weapon is always going to be a worry for Riptide because their weapon is expensive and difficult to fix. So, you hit it enough times in the same spot, it's going to break eventually. Maybe, who knows?
I think they had two, didn't they? But that was.
I wasn't sure who would win tip to tip, because I mean we're. I don't think Riptide spins that fast, but I mean we're not geared to spin, crazy fast either. So I wasn't sure who was going to win. I mean we were going full stick, didn't really care about gyro. Trying to get them weapon to weapon, but it was gonna be a toss up. And I think looking back, maybe we should have gone weapon to weapon more rather than me trying to concentrate and by sticking our fork into their weapon.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Maybe could have made a difference, but
absolutely.
At that time I was dead set on getting our fork in their weapon.
Yeah. On the second hit of the fight, you do try to feed your fork just straight into their weapon, and it doesn't end up too bad for you. You kind of do a couple of tumbles, but you land right back on your feet as a cat does. But after that, I mean, Riptide gets a hit on one of the forks, and it looks a little wonky after that. And I don't think it lasts too much longer on the bot, too far long after that. And then the next hit you get really sends Riptide up, and it looked very similar to your first hit. And then things start to go a little sideways, where Riptide just rips a fork off, sends you upside down, and at that point, Catter's just reeling. Upside down hit.
It's once again the getting stuck on the sort of ram rig
flappy bit
section. Yeah. It's a few robots already this season who have got stuck there, and it's like,
so those are supposed to actuate, right?
Yeah, right.
So
But-
we were yelling.
so where was it? Where was
Do
it?
the flippy thing. Do the flippy thing. Release us. But yeah, it just wasn't working or something. So
Maybe you landed funny
I mean,
on it or something.
it's probably better.
I know.
That
I know
it
the
didn't
ones on the
work
far side of the
'cause it
ring
saved us from a lot
actuate.
of damage.
Yeah.
It's true. I do actually want to ask the other question I was going to ask during the fight, which was from Rob Weston on Discord, who asks, Mad Catter usually tends to rely on the vertical spinner during the fights. Have you got any plans to use the lifting arm more, or is it more of a token / secondary weapon?
I mean, it's definitely a secondary weapon, right? If our
Mhm.
if our weapon goes down, or if our vertical spinner goes down, then we start to use the fork. But the gearbox isn't the strongest, so we try not to get it damaged so that you can self-right when we need to,
Mhm.
rather than use it as a primary lifter. And then we've also learned from the hammer days that having, a lifter and a hammer going opposite directions is a bad idea for gearboxes. Basically, if you're trying to lift and then you hammer them, then it just breaks your lifter arms. So we're trying not to do the same thing with our vert, where we get the lifter on top of them and then hit them with the vert, and then it just shears all the gears and just destroys everything. So
yeah.
We try to be pretty gentle with the lifter.
Mhm. Steve, who's next for Riptide?
Oh no, we're not done yet.
Oh, we're not done yet. Okay.
Yeah.
Have at it. Go,
I want to roll
There's
us
a
back
tiny.
to-
There's a
to
tiny
the
bit
corner.
more.
a tiny bit more, or is there a big bit more?
We'll see how you take it.
Go for it.
So let's see. How do I
I
begin?
mean, first of all, I want to talk about the post-fight interview stuff.
Okay.
Before,
Oh,
I
wait,
was
before that.
It's
before
that
that.
even
Oh,
happens.
okay.
Oh, yeah.
We'll save
get
that.
there.
We'll save that.
Get there. Okay, so bots love to play with their food after fight. You've won.
Tombstone
I
destroying
see-
Bombshell, for example.
Exactly. Oh my god, I watch that back sometimes, and there's that one part of Bombshell that just kind of falls next to Ray. Talk about having nerves of steel. Anyway, yes, playing with your food after the fight, totally fine. We had it last week with Scorpios and Diana going like on the ace and like right where the bell goes, and such a great hit. Where that's just just nice. It's nice TV. Riptide going after the mini bot, totally fair game. The bell goes.
It's still moving.
The bell goes.
Yeah.
Right.
And at this point, you're supposed to stop. You're just supposed to stop. You listen to the refs. They say, put your controllers down. Sometimes they get really, like when you're celebrating and stuff like that, they'd be like, all right, put your controllers down.
Physically take
It's
the
over.
controller from your
Yeah.
hand.
They should,
Or,
they should have did that last week. I remember that being mentioned.
don't punch the ref by accident. Jake. That was such a funny bit. Oh man, I'm never gonna let him let that down. That was so funny.
Save it for the Hydra interview.
Yeah. So at some point, like right when the bell goes, there is a piece of catter that gets kicked. And that's, right at the buzzer. I can deal with that. But it's the second and third after that where you just continue to keep playing with your food and the ref is telling you to stop. That's where it kind of sits funny with me. Jevin, you might have more direct
that was
notes.
one of our front end our like brand new front end attachments called the kitten heels. But we wanted to use those in every fight. It was a 1/2 inch plate of AR that we spent like hours chamfering to a point. And then, so luckily when that got ripped off by Riptide, it was mostly usable. Like we could, bend a tab back and then we just bolt it back on and reuse it. But yeah, after the bell hits, that 1/2 inch piece of plate was absolutely mangled. And there's no bending that back. There's no reusing that. There's no amount of work that you can do to reuse that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we only had, a few. We run a really tight budget. We don't have a million spares. So after the fight, we saw that, like, all right, great. We'll just bolt that back on, weld a few cracks, be good. But they didn't let us do that.
No.
So,
and
actually so when a big robot, hits something small like that, even with the 250 mile an hour tip speed, the change in momentum will make that little piece travel way faster than 250 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So from a safety standpoint, the refs and the BattleBots producers were not happy with
No, well, considering the fact that they have to go straight into the box to deactivate the robots ready to get the next fight in and going,
right?
It's just taking more time to stop poor behavior, basically. And it's once again where sportsmanship has let them down, I think, because they're busy enjoying themselves and not thinking about everybody else. It was actually, Steve pointed out we were sat on the blue side for the whole session of, this was session 4 as well. And Steve noticed that Ref Dave was then talking to Ethan about something. We had seen the late hits on the piece of metal and gone, that's not right. And then Ref Dave then went and had a discussion with Greg and Mike Jeffries. And then Ethan then had a conversation with them as well. So we've got to assume that there was a bit of telling off there and sort of smacked wrists about safety in the box, which
first of all, why on earth would you want to mess around with Ref Dave? Because I feel like he'd chin you. Like the guy looks like he eats gravel for breakfast. Sorry, carry on.
But yeah, you've got to imagine that there were words had. We had a conversation with Ref Dave afterwards, which we won't go into detail with because he asked us not to. So we won't. And but yeah, it's on a whole safety standpoint. If you're not being safe in the box, then you need to think about, should this person really be here? And I think that's sort of a first glancing warning for this team, because you've got to be safe. It's the first and foremost. You've got to be safe.
Especially after the bell. Like, there's chaos in the box. Like shoot, last year, in the Slugfest, we have Hypershock just going after Valkyrie's spinning blade and yeeting it into the side of the box. Super dangerous. And I believe production was very upset with Will with that after the fact. But it looked good on TV.
Yeah. So but in the drivers meeting before this event, they specifically went over this and said, don't go after the little pieces because it's very expensive and we got to do a lot of repairs to the lights and the Lexan and whatnot.
Oh yeah, and it'll start
considering
like,
that this was the third fight out that evening after Huge versus Blip had already paused production, after Claw Viper versus Ribbot had already paused production. Like, you don't want to have a third stoppage on a session because that's
this was the day
and money
where things were getting a little nervy on if they were going to get their set number of fights in.
So for several reasons, don't do that. Basically,
the famous,
you're told beforehand not to.
Yes,
the famous Greg Gibson quote comes to mind of "Don't be a dick." And it's wise words to live by, and maybe Riptide need to kind of reassess and think, okay, maybe we should listen to Greg's advice from previously. I mean, if that wasn't enough, I mean, I mentioned it briefly, the post-fight interview stuff as well. Now, I get wanting to celebrate, you've won the fight. It's a big fight to win. Mad Catter has been kicking ass for the last couple of years.
I love Martin when they cut to him.
That was just
let go, and he's like,
it was fantastic. but it was the covering of Martin's mouth and like the kind of, you can tell that you both were a bit miffed, to say the very least. And I will applaud both of your class and kind of
professionalism.
Maturity.
I'll say,
you
can tell Martin Mason's a teacher. My God, he knows how to deal with this sort of thing.
He has a lot of patience.
I mean, obviously, not to get too dragged up in the drama of the whole thing, because that's not really what we're here for.
No.
Yeah.
Were you particularly put out by this whole thing? Was like, obviously you've got to repair the robot, you've got to you expect a smacking from Riptide, that's all well and good, but like, was this particularly like egregious for you?
As far as repairs go, I don't think so. I mean, I think getting stuck in the wall really saved us. I would have liked to continue the fight, but if you're already losing, then there's kind of it's good to save your robot for the rest of the season because there's lots of fights coming up.
Yeah,
There are indeed. Steve, shall we ask who Riptide are fighting next?
Sure. So Riptide. Oh, Riptide. We could just mark this one down. So Riptide's fighting Captain Shredderator. I'm sorry, Brian, but I don't know what you're going to do to this thing.
It's getting sent to the moon, isn't it?
I would think so. You ever flip a quarter? I think that's going to happen a lot.
You ever flip it at 100 miles an hour?
Yeah, and it just doesn't slip. Oh, I feel awful for the Captain Shredderator team. They're going to have a serious rebuild ahead of them unless they get super supremely, ultimately lucky that something, Riptide spontaneously combusts in the box. Anyway, Mad Catter
Wait for has Big Dill and LockJaw to come.
Yeah,
green robots.
Yeah.
3 more green robots to be fighting. Calvin, your initial kind of thoughts of fighting these two?
So Big Dill is captained by Emmanuel Carrillo, right?
Mhm.
And
Pointing Spider-Man me.
he's a fantastic builder from Seattle. He was instrumental on the Warhawk and Cat King robots. He basically designed them all. And he helped us with the design for the current Mad Catter and the Mad Catter previously. And he's been part of the team. He's been helping us out, build the robot. We're really, really good friends with him. So we're
Just
pretty excited
close to
fight.
the Tantrum Blip fight as you can get with another team that don't have. I mean, it's 2 separate teams, but they might as well not be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, our pits are basically combined. Like when we rearrange the tables, we turn it into one big pit with us and Big Dill.
Yeah.
We help him out whenever we can, and he helps us out just immeasurably. So we're excited, and I think he was really excited to use his new vertical spinner attachment. That's just a little, I think it's 20 something pound disc, but that's the same weight as our smallest weapon. So it and then he's using one of the in runners that we use for our weapon as well. We use 3, but it has a lot of oomph. So we're excited to fight him.
Yeah, we got some really nice B-roll in the fight in the pits leading up to. We'll get some really nice B-roll leading up to the fight of this beautiful gear train that he has going up to this weapon. I'm really excited to see it in the box. There's just something nice about seeing a pickle with a spinner on the front of it. I mean, this is one of those bots that it's been around. We've seen what it can do. It technically, I don't think it was supposed to even be in the main season. I think it was a reserve.
It was a reserve that came in.
So this is a really a moment for Emmanuel to really prove that he deserves to be amongst the 50 that they pick for the show. Maybe there was a mistake for them to put him as a reserve. But I'm very much looking forward to your clash in the box.
Yeah, and then fighting Donald Hudson with LockJaw was
as we've touched
super
on.
Cool.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just all his robots are so pretty, and he's just been around for years, and he's been an inspiration to us for a long time. So
I was going to say you missed
we're excited to fight him.
Surely a lot of the team would have been watching him growing up as well. Like a lot of teams were. So it's just kind of it's that cool moment of you get to fight the guy you've watched for forever, basically.
I've been very vocal. He's my favorite classic builder. It's I don't know. I just there's some connection of just seeing these machines that I mean it's very modern but organic and just it looks alive. There's just something about his designs. You can go look on the BattleBots website now. The new Tazbot.
Oh yeah!
Wow. So curious to see how that's going to fight. A 6-wheeled Tazbot. Never in my life would I have ever thought you'd see something like that. Just silly. I'd like to see how it holds up against some of these other bots.
I heard they managed to get the working sort of removable mini bot front section as well, because that was meant to be a thing.
It's so silly. It's so silly. Well, that kind of brings us to the end of the episode, and upcoming fights. We have 3 more questions before we let you go, Calvin. We'll do one
All right.
each.
We can do quick fire.
We can do quick fire. So the first one is asked by a fair few people this week, but the 2 that I kind of highlighted were from Travis Arp on Twitter and Neverwave on YouTube, and they ask, will you ever make a £250 Lynx, and do you think it would be accepted if you did?
There already is
So,
one. Next
before
question.
this episode, I think, I mean, I thought that, well, first of all, it would need, some sort of a theming and
Big time.
some, character behind it, not just Lynx.
Mm.
So yeah, that was like one hurdle. And then obviously, if I were to make a 250-pound Lynx, it would just look like I copied Riptide because that's what people see on TV.
Oh yeah.
And that's what people know.
Mhm.
But yeah, with this episode, maybe it, allows us to, make Mad Catter look a little bit more like Lynx and have it be acceptable. So we will see.
Food for thought. Food for thought.
Mhm.
Steve, do you want to grab the second one?
Yeah, for sure. So Helen Claudio on YouTube asks, what advice would you give aspiring builders who run kit bots to going to the next step?
Let's see. Going back to the last question. What's prevented us from, what's prevented me from making a 250-pound Lynx is just the sheer cost of the egg beater.
Yeah,
understandable.
Big chunk of steel that you can't really make in multiple pieces because then you have those joints that are weak. So yeah, that's been a big, thing that's made it cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
Currently we make our weapons out of, stacked 1/2-inch plates of AR 500, and it's a super, super cheap way of making a weapon. Whereas I think Ethan said that like one of their egg beaters runs around $3,000 or something like that. And
yeah,
basically that's more than half our budget.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Just for one weapon.
That's crazy.
I mean, you could go like the Robot Wars Hobgoblin route, where it's just it's instead of being like with like 3D bits, it's just a sheet,
a flat sheet with a hole in the middle, and
yeah, but then like finding a 4-inch thick sheet that
right
you can cut out of,
there's no easy answer.
Someone
difficult.
to cut it
with the budget.
Yeah, still expensive no matter what. So that's been like the main reason why we've stuck with the the kind of 2-inch thick, more typical vertical spinner weapon.
That's not easy to machine a piece that big, really.
No,
I mean it's how you gonna what kind of
big tools.
I mean, how are you gonna put that stock into the machine anyway? You're gonna need it's heavy as heck. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah, so the second question was, what advice would you give to the aspiring builders who would run kit bots?
Yeah, like what's the next step for a builder? Like say they bring a kit bot to an event. I mean, there's a lot of builders that do this when they're first getting into combat robotics. They'll buy a bot off the shelf, play around with it, and say, okay, what's my next step? Do I look like where do I go?
I think you should have the idea that nothing is sacred on that robot, right? Just because it comes as a kit and that's how it's meant to, it's designed to be. It doesn't mean that everything is perfect on it, and just because it has add 2 more, and just because it has a weapon belt routed a certain way doesn't mean it could be different. Everything is something that you're able to change, and something that you should change if you think it can be improved. So yeah, I don't think kitbots should stay stock, especially if you learn to find its weaknesses and want to improve them. And basically, through that process, you'll basically be creating your own robot. And after modifying your kitbot so much that building a brand new robot of your own design is not that hard.
I mean, we can see it with Evanarius and Shreddit Bro. That thing has gone
Mhm.
so far from being what it was what was a kinetic kit, I believe, a kinetic egg beater kit or something like that. It looks
I think it's
something
always a
similar to
finger tech egg beater.
or a
But,
figure
you
tech
know,
egg beater.
with those,
But in any
the
case,
chassis is always your own design.
yeah, it looked very
Stock.
like stock, like
Mhm.
the old
I mean, you can see most of the Shreddit team's beetles have all started out life as those egg beater kits, and they all look
Mhm.
so different to each other. Like you got
Boombox and Hurt Caboose and all of them.
Mhm.
yeah.
Wake and Bake.
Yeah, they all have their own character now, and they're all
Blackbird.
they all do things their own way, and I think it's great.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely, really, really.
And
is.
like Johnny with Spartan, like
yes,
that thing used to be a kinetic kit, right? Or wait,
Oh.
or a vector kit. Was it vector kit?
vector kit, yeah.
Yes.
It
Yes.
ain't anymore.
But yeah, that thing is
No.
way better than any vector kit. Stock vector kit is. He's done so many improvements to the weapon drivetrain, to the structure of it, and I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him with a new robot of his own design, like anytime.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. Jevon, you get the honors. Last question.
I do. I think I know the
Finalmente.
answer to this as well. Richard Sam on Facebook asks, "What's the calmest you've ever seen Martin Mason?" I'm pretty sure he's a chill guy off camera, right?
Yeah, he's pretty chill. He's he kind of took a step back this year.
We have noticed a lot more of you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he still yells at the camera, which I greatly appreciate.
He takes the heat off the
But, yeah.
kids, It's really the
Yeah,
focus is on him.
Yeah, he does a great job of distracting all the production people and getting them away from the pit and letting us work. So this year I've kind of been the pit boss, and so I've been like in charge of getting the robots ready, and so I think that's it's been good this past year because it allows him to go and socialize and or go help us charge batteries and or just help other teams. He was instrumental in getting Doom up and ready and passing safety, and he's just kind of all over the place helping other teams, and it's great to have Mason on our team.
Would you like to captain Mad Catter someday?
Possibly. It's a big task.
It's big shoes to fill, right?
Yeah. I'm not the most comfortable in front of the camera.
Sure.
So it's always nice to not have to do that job. But yeah, I could possibly see myself captaining Mad Catter. It's also just a big financial burden to take on.
For sure.
Trying to find sponsors and doing all the behind the scenes stuff that's not building robots.
It's tough.
I think we had this conversation many episodes ago with Jen Herkenroder, where she was she was on Team Scorpios, and then when she got to captain her own team, it's like you don't realize how much goes into being the captain on your team. Like there's so many other things that you have to do other than just working on the robot. So it's it's there's that huge step up of like you're the face of the team. You're basically your own PR. So how you're presented on TV is directly related to how you present yourself. So that's, and I think Martin does a pretty good job. But yeah, it would be hard shoes to fill. But I think you do fine. Give yourself a good director.
It's really nice to have like a PR person.
Yes.
The face of the team. They're the captain on TV. But then have someone that's has the time to work on the robot.
Because he's also a guy that gets his hands
being
dirty.
pulled away by production, doing interviews. That can really like hunker down and lead the team and work the robot.
It's good to have somebody you can go to and kind of ground you. It's good to have a mentor, and I think Martin's exemplary at that, and I think it comes across well on TV.
Definitely. Well, that is that. Calvin, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And if you want to hear more from Calvin, listen to Behind the Bots this week.
Yeah.
Normally we try and split guests and try and make sure we don't have the same person on twice, but I feel like this week was just inevitable that this was going to happen. So, yeah, Calvin, thank you so much for your time, dude. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, it was great being on.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Well, that said, I've been SawBlaze64.
I've been Steve the American Killjoy.
I've been World of Woodrow.
And I've been Calvin Iba from Mad Catter and Lynx.
Excellent. And
Especially
Lynx. And the three of us will see you next week for more BattleBots. We'll see you then.